Listen to this episode if you have ever taken a break from your business, long or short, and now you're coming back, you want to make some changes, but you just aren't sure how to actually come back. Whether you had to come back after burnout from a weekend away, or maybe a week away, maybe a summer away, whatever that really looks like, this is a conversation that we have to have in business. And it's one that I am so incredibly passionate about. If you know my story, you know that I have been burnt out many times. I was diagnosed with PTSD from being overworked and basically chronically burnt out at honestly a really young age. And so this is a really big topic for me. And I just wanted to say that overcoming burnout as a business owner is something that every single business owner has. There's elements and there's times of us either feeling misaligned, we're overworking ourselves, we're doing too much. And it comes to a point where we're like, okay, something has to change. There's like these breaking point moments. I have a lot of episodes about this topic. If you want to know kind of the difference between burnout and just feeling misaligned, or kind of what that really looks like, how to overcome it, how to avoid it, all of that. I have a ton of episodes out there on it. But today we're really talking about how do we come back after burnout. Now, this specific situation that we're talking about is actually a conversation that was submitted by one of you. She took a long break in her business and now she's trying to come back. But this topic doesn't just have to be about if you take a couple of months off. This can also be, if you take a break in business in general, or it can just be that you're feeling burnt out and you have to create a plan now of how to move forward in a different way. Burnout really is a lifelong practice, especially as somebody that's found burnout once. You are probably more likely to find it again. Most business owners are high achievers. Most business owners are highly driven. Most business owners can kind of convince themselves that they should just keep working, and they're much more susceptible to burnout than your everyday, day-to-day person that doesn't own and run their own business. So understanding that we are just as business owners, as high achieving people, as driven people are very likely to experience burnout at some point in our lives. What we have to do is we have to find practices, we have to find, situations, we have to find ways to either prevent it or come back from it when it does happen. So there's always a way that you can come back. If you did take a big break, it doesn't mean that your business is gone forever. You can absolutely come back. But today we're going to really talk about what that looks like. Again, like I said, this was a situation and a question that was submitted by one of you in our completely free podcast community. It's called the Small Business Cafe. She says, I'm in a situation right now where I've taken nearly the entire summer off from my business due to burnout and just needing a break. I did some markets and custom orders, but completely took off of posting. I want to do things in a more sustainable way for my energy and sanity this time around, and also use this as an opportunity to revamp a bit of my branding and offerings. What would your advice for a strategic way to jump back in, introduce some changes, and get back to business as usual if you have been gone for a little while? Great question. We're going to dive into all of this. Before we dive in, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to introduce myself in case you're new here. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist and I am the host of the Small Business Growth Podcast. Here we like to teach in a fun conversational type of way. I like to bring you the raw and real of running a business. And I like to say it's kind of like sipping coffee with a biz bestie. Like, you are sitting across from me, we're sipping coffees, and we're having a genuine business conversation. If that's up your alley, we put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. We would love to have you in this small business family here. So first things first that we really want to do here is when we feel burnout, I think we first have to identify that when we feel burnout, kind of the process of which you go through is we overwork ourselves. Some people are like, okay, let me just take the weekend off and see how I feel. Then sometimes people are like, all right, I've taken a couple of weekends off now. I've really tried to set my structure and I'm just feeling overall burnt out. So now I'm taking a longer time off. Now I need this. Now I need a vacation. Now I need something more. If I were to ask you right now, what do you need in order to solve the problems that you're feeling? What do you need in business more than anything else? If your natural inclination is like, I need a major break, you're probably burnt out. You probably need to take some time. And sometimes we feel that way and we don't really need that. You take a weekend off and you're feeling rejuvenated and you're going. But if you consistently are trying to take small little breaks off and then you're coming back, maybe you're 24 hours into it and you're right back to where you were on a Friday, by the end of Monday night, you were already feeling the way that you felt on Friday, needing another break, there's probably a bigger issue here going on that we really have to tackle. So what we have to identify before we come back, before we create this plan, is actually what is causing you to burn out. Because burnout doesn't just come from overworking yourself. You can be burnt out for a lot of different reasons. You can be burnt out because you're self-sacrificing all the time, so you really don't do anything for yourself anymore. You don't do your morning routines. You don't do the things that make you happy. You don't do your hobbies. You might be having mismatched identity in your business, or mismatched tasks, or you're running your business in a way that you no longer align with, or you're not really building something that you align with anymore. Maybe your priorities have shifted. A lot of times we see this in business owners that become a new mom, and then all of a sudden they have 2 kids, their priorities totally shift. And they're like, okay, what do I want to do now in my life? I don't really feel like my business aligns anymore. And so you're chasing this passion that you're really no longer passionate about. Maybe you have too much of something. You really hate this one element of your business. You really hate custom orders, or you really hate marketing, or you really hate all of these pieces. This is what keeps causing you to burn out. Or maybe you just don't have enough support. You're doing all of the things. You're working much too many hours. You never feel like you have anything back on yourself. Maybe you're just doing things you don't like anymore all the time, that those things need to get off of your plate. We first have to identify what caused you to burn out. Because if you burn out and then you come back and you are doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, you're just going to burn out again. And it might not be in 2 weeks. It might not be in 4 weeks. It could be 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line. But it is not sustainable for us to build a business that makes us take a full summer off every year or every couple of years because we are consistently running something that burns us out. What we have to do is we have to identify how can we fill this gap and how can we fix this so we never burn out to especially this capacity ever again. We have to make sure that we can fill that gap and that we can come up with routines, hobbies, habits, things that are actually going to help rejuvenate us outside, whether it's structure, a team member, taking things off of your plate. We first have to come up with a strategy and a structure of how can we remove these things. So we first have to identify what caused you to burn out in the first place. And then next we have to create a plan to actually change that ASAP. What was it? How will we make sure it never happens again? And what are we going to do if you start feeling it? Because speaking from my own experience, I know what my signs and my symptoms are at this point. I have had ebbs and flows of burnout. In my past life, before I ran this business, I ran a business that caused me to burn out severely every single summer. It was a seasonal business, and it was right in the summertime. So April, May, June, July. By the middle of July, I literally don't remember most of my Julys pretty much every year. And then I would get to August and I would just be in grind mode for so long. So now that I've run my own business and I'm committed to the point of never feeling like that again, I can start to feel my signs and my symptoms. And I say, this is another layer of burnout. Oh, I need to take the freaking weekend completely off, disconnected off of social media and just enjoy. Oh, my morning routines are out of whack, which is causing me to just not enjoy my life and enjoy my time anymore. Oh, okay. I have to make some of these other changes. And so now I know what are my signs and my symptoms and what do I need to do in order to fix it as well. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But before you really come back, we have to identify what actually caused it in the first place. And we have to come up with a plan as to how to fix it, how to remove it, and what you're going to do in this next phase of your business that doesn't include whatever caused that to happen. Maybe you have to hire somebody. Maybe you have to take an offering off of your website. Maybe you have to change this, or you have to change this other thing, or you have to realign with what your vision is and your goals are and where you're really trying to go in business. But you have to have a path forward before we actually jump back in. We have to identify how are we going to get to this place of business and have a business that doesn't include the thing that caused us to burn out again. Because if you just jump back in, you're just going to keep that cycle going, and running a business is not sustainable if you have to take a big break all of the time. Ideally, we can have things constantly throughout our weeks, throughout our months that cause us to feel refueled and feel passionate, feel motivated to allow us to keep on moving forward. So once we kind of identify what caused us to burn out, the second step is identifying what are we going to revamp and make a plan. Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you who are loving the podcast but wish we could dive deeper into every episode topic together. I have actually started a completely free podcast community called the Small Business Cafe for exactly this purpose. Inside this community, we dive deeper into every podcast episode, provide bonus resources, and actually host completely free monthly coaching calls with me. So you can get your questions answered. Plus, you get to submit your questions for our Friday coaching session episodes and connect with other founders too. If you have been loving being a part of this podcast and want to connect with other brand founders, plus get extra support from me, click the link in the show notes below to join. You're very right in saying that when you do take a big break in business like this, it's really easy to use this as a way to come back with tweaks, changes, and adaptations, because you can basically say, hey, I'm back. I know I've been kind of MIA, but this is what's going to change moving forward. While I was away, I was brainstorming, I was realigning with my business and with what I want. This is what's changing moving forward. So I like that idea. There's a couple of things that you can do here. First things first is we have to identify if this is something that you want to make an announcement around of what is going to change. Of course, that kind of depends on what is actually changing. If you are completely rebranding your business, if you are completely changing what your unique value proposition was, or taking away one of your major product lines, anything like that, you have to make an announcement around, because you can't just come back and kind of be like, let's hope nobody notices. We have to probably make some sort of announcement. So what I would recommend is identify what are these things that you are really going to change? What are we going to revamp, and how can we make a plan? So I would actually make all of the changes prior to actually coming back. So I would rebrand. I would come up with all of your new visuals. I would remake your website. And then I would say, hey, I know that, I've been gone for a while. We had to take the summer off after we did these things. And you can choose to be as most or as little transparent as possible. So you can give a lot of detail, kind of give the whole overview, or you can kind of just say, hey, we took a break and we're back. That's totally up to you and how you want to run your business. And of course, of what was going on behind the scenes, if you feel comfortable sharing that. But this is a good time to come back refreshed and revamped. So I would, if you're going to rebrand, if you're going to take things off of your website, I basically would do that and then come up with a plan of your content calendar. I would say, hey, I would make a feed post that says, hey, we've been gone for a while. We're coming back. You could kind of play it up a little bit. And if you want to, you could, talk to your community, almost like tease it, we're coming back, and have like a countdown on your stories to try to build some excitement around it. And then kind of make a post that says, okay, we're back. This is what's been going on. Maybe do a life update. If you have a little bit of a personal brand, this is a life update. And then saying, this is what's going to change moving forward. And you're going to see some changes around here. You can kind of keep it open-ended first, and then have a dedicated post maybe the next day about what's changing, what's coming, what's going. This is our new brand that we have, whatever that might be. I would definitely go through and have a very strategic content calendar for at least that first week after coming back. What's going to change? What does it mean for them? How are you doing? What is your life update? What have you been working on? Here's some different things that have been going on behind the scenes, and then kind of go into whatever it is you're going to start selling or you're going to start doing. And we can kind of just move back into that, passive selling kind of season there. You might need to do a little bit more nurturing to re-engage your community, and then kind of go from there. But I definitely would identify and basically make those changes prior to actually coming back. And then the next step after that is knowing that you will most likely feel some element of burnout again, but we have to identify how we can actually identify burnout happening before it gets so bad that we have to take a couple of months off. In my business, since I've started this business, and I basically said, Maddie, I will never feel that level of burnout again. I will never allow myself to get to that point of completely, there is a fly flying around my room and it is driving me crazy. If you are watching the video, it just keeps landing on my face. I will have to get a fly swatter out and get that out of here. But if you see that happening, oh my goodness. So I basically had to tell myself, Maddie, I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to allow myself. I am committed to running a business as well as helping other people grow a business without burnout. And I have helped many many people come to me that are burnt out. They never take time for themselves and kind of crawl their way out of it and revamp how they're running their business to actually enjoy it again, love it again. That is my favorite win that I can get any of my clients, is they say, Maddie, you helped me actually love my business again, because that's what you deserve. You deserve to have a business that you love and that you can operate without having to take months off. And a lot of times, especially if you're taking months off, it is probably a gap in either how your business was run, unless it was like a big life event. Of course, if you had some major tragedy or you were just struggling in other areas, whatever that might be, that's a different kind of isolated situation. But if this was burnout caused by your business, we have to really identify, why did we have to take months off? What did we allow ourselves to put up with for so long without identifying that we were burnt out and making any changes? Because what you're not changing, you're choosing. So you chose to feel burnt out for that amount of time before we actually made some strategic changes. And that is a big issue. We have to first identify, of course, like we said, what caused this, and then why did we continuously choose it for so long that it got to the point of us having to take months off to actually feel rejuvenated again. In my business in the past that I was running, it wasn't my business, it was my family's business. I didn't have very much control over what I was able to change or to do. I was just running the business with the rules that I had. And I am just about the biggest extrovert you can ever find. All right. Like, I go to the grocery store and I'm like soaking in extrovert energy from other people. Like, I am a big extrovert. I love time alone. However, I gain energy from people. And I would literally tell people in the middle of August, like, I need to sit in a hobbit hole for months before I could ever think about doing anything again. And like, thank God that this business was 4 months, like 4 to 5 months of like really intensive work, because I could have never done it for 12 months. I don't know what I would have done, because literally come August, I would want to just like lay and sit and be a lizard all fall. Like, I was like, just please, I just want to sit in the sun. I don't want anybody to talk to me, and I don't want to do absolutely anything. And I was in the same spot as you, as I needed months off. And like, we wouldn't do anything until January, because we were all just recouping from the months that we just like ran ourselves ragged for so long. And so we have to be able to identify, what are we changing? What did we put up with? And what were the warning signs that we were burnt out before that? So now in my business, if I get like a little bit of a twinge of this, I'm like, oh, okay, let me go back to my toolbox and help me tackle this in the moment. Why am I burnt out? Why am I feeling this way? What does it mean? And how can I actually tackle it earlier on? So there is an element of having to be self-aware moving forward, that we can't allow ourselves to feel the level of burnout, because you won't be able to build a sustainable business long-term that sustains your life and grows and has a brand and has all of these things if we're constantly needing to take 3 months off of our business. So there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not here to shame you about it. Of course, like, I feel for you. I love you. I want the best for you, but we have to be able, moving forward, to also identify, why did it get to the point of us needing to take months off of our business? Again, if this is a business sake, if this is something with a life tragedy or something like that, it's a different story. That isn't something that had to do with your business. That isn't something that you chose. It isn't something that you like put up with for a long time. And of course, I add some softness to the edges of everything there, but I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't say we have to be able to identify this sooner so we don't get to this level of burnout again. So yes, we need to identify it and kind of tackle this major thing, but something else is going to come up. You know, some other thing in business, you're going to outgrow it, or you're going to want something else, or you're going to hate something that's going on, or you're going to have a really busy season. And we have to be able to identify it and pull from a toolbox of the ways to avoid it and to tackle it in the moment so it doesn't happen again. So to the person that asked this question inside of our free podcast community, thank you, because I know so many people out there are feeling this way. A lot of people take breaks. This is even something people go on maternity leave. Like, that isn't from burnout, but this is the same process that I would do. Is if you have to take a break, if you don't have anybody that is there to run your business without you, I would first kind of, figure out what that looks like. What are the changes that you're making? With maternity leave, like, I've helped a lot of clients. How do we navigate it? How do we do it? We want to be able to build a business that can run and it can sell and that can can operate without us having to be, this present eventually, when we can have a team and we can have other people, because you should be able to take time for yourself. A couple of months is a long time, but that is something that we want to look at with any type of break, anything out there. This does happen. I have a lot of people come to me, hey, I had to take this for health reasons. I had to take this. I was on maternity leave, or, I was burnt out, any of these different cases. But what we have to be able to do is build a business that can withstand and that can keep on building without us having to be as present always as well. So that is just different systems and things that we can put inside of there. Thank you so much to the person that asked this question. This is something that I know so many people out there go through. Burnout is always a conversation that I love to talk about and that I am so excited to bring to you and talk about. If you ever have any questions on it, please feel free to reach out. Burnout is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I have felt many times. It is something that I have really put a lot of time and energy and effort into avoiding in my life, in my business. And I still feel waves of burnout. I just recorded a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago that I burnt out in like a small amount again. I didn't have to take any time off of my business because of it, but it was something that I found in my personal life. I was like, oh, okay, it's a lifelong process, but we can come up with systems to tackle so we can feel better in a couple of days. We can kind of manage it on our day-to-day as opposed to having to take like big breaks from it in that case as well. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. If you want me to answer one of your business questions, make sure that you click the link in the show notes to join Small Business Cafe. You can find that there and you can ask me questions. We do monthly coaching calls, as well as it's just a community for you to connect with other business owners. So if you are seeking having a lovely group of other business owners to chat with, to ask questions to, and to bounce ideas off of, you love this podcast, chances are you would also love the other people that listen to this podcast. So click that link and I will see you inside the Small Business Cafe. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.